about the most impoverished, financially depleting thing that ever happened in your life and shout nothing. Think about the worst scandal that you ever went through in your life and shout nothing. Think about people who loved you and walked out and left you and shout nothing. Think about betrayal on the highest level of your life and shout nothing. Think about the struggle going on your job right now and shout nothing. Think about the attitude of your kinfolks and your family members and shout nothing. Think about how your boss is treating you on your job and shout nothing. Think about that disagreement between you and your children and shout nothing. Think about your past life of sin, your whoremongering, your inappropriateness, your attitude, your dysfunction, and shout nothing. Shout nothing. Let the devil hear you say nothing. That devil will think he won if you don't shout nothing. The devil will think he's in charge if you don't shout nothing. He'll think he's gonna win, but you gotta shout nothing. In the midst of hell and high water, shout nothing. In the midst of pain and despair, shout nothing. When your credit is denied, shout nothing. When you're evicted out of your house, shout nothing. When your boyfriend marries somebody else, shout nothing. Nothing. Back after this.
It's going to be, I hope you guys can hear me now. Okay. I think we're good now. So good evening. You guys couldn't hear me. Good evening to everybody once again. And we're going to go ahead and get started this evening. So a lot of things are going on. A lot of things are happening. And it's the new year, right? It's the new year. We talk about what do we want to accomplish this year. We talk about, well, what's your New Year's resolution, right? We talk about that. And what about the resolutions? You know, do we believe in making those New Year's resolutions and you know, hoping and praying that we get it done? Or do we set realistic goals and realistic expectations and work at accomplishing those goals as the year progresses? You know, we talk about short-term goals versus long-term goals, and and what we are going to do to make it happen. And I think that's something that's very important in order to accomplish our goals in a timely manner, whatever those goals might be, right? So that's something that I want to talk to you guys about tonight, but not so much in the goals, personal goals, but as a society, as a community, what are things that we, specifically speaking to you from the world of disability and the issues and things that that affect those of us that live with a disability, that we wait for change for so long. I mean, years for change. And a lot of times we don't see that change. So I'm going to mention to you all, our listeners this evening, some of those goals that either the change has already started to take place and it's just taking a really long time to come to fruition, or really there has been no change, or it's not even a thing. It's not even talked about, and it should be. And that is one of my biggest things, is making sure that I use my voice and I use my experiences and what I know, what I've learned, what I've trained in and all of that, to bring light to these issues to those people that can make a change, make a difference for the better. And so I'm going to just give you guys just a few of those things so that we can develop and be conscious of these things. I also feel like out of sight, out of mind, right? So if we don't know about something and we're not educated on that subject, we don't really pay attention. Versus if I tell you about it, then you'll be like, oh, I remember that, or I remember hearing about that, and you'll become more conscious about it. And the more conscious that we become about a subject as a community, I feel we can work together to make a change. So obviously we're living through COVID, right? We're living through COVID-19, and that has been a big thing from day one. I remember in the beginning of COVID, I had the opportunity to join a state representative, actually, Mr. Chevron Jones, and we did an online virtual speaking engagement where we educated on the issues that people with disabilities are going to face now with COVID, as well as how things are going to get better, for people with disabilities as it pertains to employment, even through COVID, like working from home. Before, working from home was not a thing. It was like impossible. And then with COVID, everybody was working from home. So now we know that there's no excuse for not allowing people with disabilities that have mobility impediments or any kind of impediment the opportunity to work from home and make money, right? The reason for that is because so many are on government benefits, which, by the way, was just raised by 5.9%, just not much, but it's definitely very helpful for those that depend on that benefit, 5.9% from what it was in 2021. So one of those things is normalization rather of COVID that doesn't leave disabled people and those with chronic illnesses out. So whether it's the accessibility of receiving the vaccine or the booster and things like that, what are we doing as a community to make sure everybody has access to those things, keeping in mind that many people with disabilities live in facilities, group homes, or as a matter of fact, they have a job in retail, because a lot of times that's the number one area of work that hires those with disabilities is in retail or maybe even restaurant. And again, so they can't take the time off. They don't close. How are we protecting these individuals? How are we protecting all people from those things, that have to work in things that they cannot do from home, and are so much more vulnerable? So that number one thing that we just spoke about was COVID, and what are we doing to protect all people, including those with disabilities, during this time of COVID? And the second thing on the list that is so big, that needs so much consistent advocacy, and as a matter of fact, I've been a part of this very much, maybe about the past 2 years, only because I've been very active or more active rather, in the political world. So the second thing is voting. Accessibility in voting for all people, including those with disabilities. I cannot expect change in any subject matter having to do with disability unless I advocate for whatever change it is that I want to see in that matter, right? So as it pertains to voting, maintaining and increase voting participation of persons with disabilities, that is a huge thing. And the reason why people with disabilities don't vote is because, one, the lack of accessibility, physically and literally, and two, a lot of times when I talk to different people is they don't believe that their voice matters, or that that anyone is going to pay attention to their specific need, which indeed is very, very hard. So in 2020, the numbers of voters with disabilities actually increased, which is really good. I'm sure, if we do some research, the reason that it did increase was because of everything that was going on, the whole COVID situation coming to us. And, so there was so much more that we needed to advocate for during those times to now. So we did have an increase in the number of people with disabilities that voted. And I would love to see that progress continue to increase. That would be amazing. And so we also need to close the gap of voters with and without disabilities. So as a whole, in general, people with disabilities need to vote, and those without disabilities. We need to understand that it's not just about voting for the president of the United States. More importantly, or equally important rather, is to vote for those local representatives that really can make a difference. And I learned that by being more active in the political world. These people in our local cities are the ones that can make a difference. But a lot of times we don't know who they are. We don't know their background. We don't know their stories, or what they stand for, and we just vote for whoever. And we should never do that, ever, regardless of what choice you're making or decision or whatever the case. Always learn and be educated on who it is that you are voting for, because your life is literally in their hands. So we should definitely know who it is that we are voting for. And so what we need to make that happen is having easy access to the mail-in votes. Mail-in ballots are not enough. The mail-in ballots are not enough because of the inaccessibility of them, and the fact that a lot of people with disabilities, maybe they live alone and they don't have somebody to help them in that process. So that's not enough. The polling, the sites need to become more accessible. Can we get candidates to address real life issues for people with disabilities? Is a huge deal. But again, in order for that to happen, we as individuals with disabilities need to definitely vote more. I remember earlier this past year, I was very active in the voting times, in the voting season, if you will. And the voting site in my area was not accessible. There was no ADA compliance. There was no ADA parking available. There was tents and trucks and cars covering that area. And someone that was there literally called me to come by and take a look and voice, that situation. And of course I did. And it worked. So my hope there is to make sure that doesn't happen again, and to make sure that those organizing these things, because it doesn't work how we think it works. It's totally different and it's very complicated. But my hope is that all of them can be educated for when, voting comes around again, which, it's not too far away, that it becomes more accessible to people with disabilities in every single way. So that's definitely another thing, having that easy access to voting as a whole, period. And, when can we say that politicians need to, but are we going to educate? I can't expect for politicians to make a change in X, Y, and Z if I'm not willing to educate. So I know, and I have made it a point from a very long time ago, to be very active, to be out there, to be in their face, so to speak, and let them know who I am and what I do and what I advocate for and why I advocate for it. Because it's not only the fact that I do it, it's why. So I have definitely made it a point to do that, and have gained many, many, contacts and relationships in a sense by doing that. So it does work to be out there. And that's what I would encourage you to do. Don't, of course, we're in different times, but don't stay home. Don't put a blind eye to these issues and expect other people to advocate for you, because it's not going to work. Your voice matters. Your advocacy is going to be totally different than my advocacy on any given issue. And so it's very important for these individuals to hear us all in whichever way possible. Whether you can do it verbally by attending, write a letter, call them. They all have offices and assistants and all that good stuff. Call them and let your voices be heard with the issues at hand. Good evening, Brother Earl. Good evening. Thank you for joining in. And I saw you this morning having fun. So that's awesome, awesome, awesome. Thank you for joining us. So yes. Now, the next thing on the list is home care. Home care is very on fire right now. It's a very sad situation right now because of COVID, because there's no workers, very little workers. A lot of the workers rather go work somewhere else, now paying $15 an hour versus working in the home care industry. And it's sad because these people that are there need the most care, and they're not getting it. I had an experience about 2 days ago. I was actually here at church, and I spoke to a family member of mine who is in a nursing home care facility, and he's not being taken care of. He's not being properly taken care of, and it's really sad. And I can advocate until forever, and I've called, and I'm trying to get him the best care possible, but they don't have workers. They're understaffed. He doesn't have more family. It's really difficult. So, I would love to see expansion in home care services and in provision for these individuals, an increase in home care workers, of course, in both the elderly and those with disabilities. And I know, and I've talked about this before, ARC of South Florida, the ARC of South Florida, and I was included in that actually. We're advocating for an increase in the budget that goes to these nursing homes and home care facilities for these individuals to get better care. Hopefully the idea is more money, better care, right? So that's definitely a goal, to better the current battles that they're going through. So that really hit me when I saw this individual. We FaceTimed, I saw him on camera, and totally different from the person that I know. And, it's very sad. That's where our dollars are going, and that they deserve better. These individuals deserve better, and we need to do better. They need to do better. We need to do better. We need to advocate, and our state needs to do better to take care of these individuals. And so that goes into disability policy. Disability law, rather, all types of laws, rules, and regulations that need to be not only set, but they need to be followed up and followed through. And there needs to be accountability as to what these individuals and these places are doing, or not doing, rather, with the tax dollars and the individuals that are under their care. So that's another thing, finishing unfinished business, which was started last year, as it pertains to these laws that are supposed to come into place. That is something that needs to be done. The benefits reform, eligibility, the rules, the thresholds, which means the limits and how much income we can make for our benefits. All of these different things, yes, they have started to talk about it, but there it is. What's the end result? What is the end result that's going to help me, that's going to help anyone, whether with a disability or elderly or dependent on other people, to live a more productive, healthier lifestyle? That is my question of the year. My question of the year is, what are they going to do about it, right? So let's finish unfinished business this year with all of these things going on. You know, when is it going to be easier for us to be able to, for when I say us, specifically individuals with disabilities, to be able to work more or make more money while working and, you know, be financially independent and financially stable without fear of losing our benefits? You know, personally, I'm at a point where I'm like, you know what, it's in God's hands. It be what it be, like I say, but I'm not going to stop my success and my potential from growing because I want to depend on the government. I'm not doing it. And somebody made a comment to me, somebody close to me made a comment to me and said, oh, what are you, you know, basically, what are you doing? Are you depending on the government? They were kidding. You don't kid like that, number one. Number two, I'm like, I snapped. I'm like, no, I'm doing A, B, C, D, and making it happen. So, you know, we have to find ways to be independent and let the government know, like, listen, this is what we do. This is our skills, our talents, our abilities. There's nothing you can do about it because there is nothing they can do about it. And of course, the last one, I've talked about it before, very passionate about this one, is the sub minimum wage. I strongly dislike the sub minimum wage because it gives employers who are in this particular program the ability to pay workers with disabilities less than minimum wage. I see it as a self-worth thing. I see it as, you know, these individuals are working, they're getting up, they're doing what they have to do. They have the same requirements as everybody else. They wear a uniform, you know, all of these things. Why are we allowed to pay them less than anybody else? You know, it's demeaning to me. I don't like it. And I know last year they were working really hard to eliminate it. It got to like the final stages and then again it stopped. And that's the thing that happens with a lot of our policies and our laws. You know, from the advocacy is that it gets far and then it stops and then it's like fall through the cracks. So these are things that if we really want to advocate and we really want to let people with disabilities know that we all matter, that we're included and we have talents and all this good stuff that we always, that me personally advocate for, then I need the other side to help me to bring these things into place, into the, you know, to the finish line, to make sure that everybody knows we matter and we're included and we're a society. You know, I always say we're one community, not, you know, different communities and all this different. No. Let's stop the division and let's stop, let's stop the division. Stop and make and do what we have to do to make everybody one society, one community, and providing opportunity while doing that. So those are things, guys, that are definitely in the works for this year, 2022, to continue to advocate for and make a difference. And we are running out of time, but I want to tell you guys, thank you so much for joining me this evening. And I was talking to someone real quick. I was talking to someone literally right before coming in the building, and they were just pouring life into me and motivating, and from an event that we did very recently. And the last thing that he said to me was, celebrate your wins. A lot of times we focus on, you know, the shoulda, coulda, wouldas, the what I want to do, you know, the fact that I'm not where I want to be yet, and all these different negative things. Let's try to focus on celebrating our wins. No matter how small, a win is a win, and it's going to get you to the next win, to the next level that you want to get to. And it's a part of life, right? It's definitely a part of life. So celebrate your wins. And with that, guys, we are out of time, and I want to thank you for joining me this evening. It felt like forever. So thank you so much for joining me this evening on another episode of Yes with Yesse. Please remember to support us, support your favorite station, New Season Gospel FM. Support. We cannot do it without you guys. And so if you're not familiar or need a little reminder, ways to give, you can go to the Cash App, New Season WC. You can do it via Zelle at 954-536-1821, or you can go right on the website, newseasonfm.com. And of course, we have our church app. So if you go to My Church app in your app store and download it and look for New Season Worship Center, you can give right through the app as well. So that is readily available for you. Don't forget that. And yes, so continue to support your station because we love being here for you all. So until next time, guys, tomorrow is Fun Friday or Friday. So make sure you tune in tomorrow morning with Pastor Steve and Pastor Henry at 8 a.m. And I will see you guys all over again next week for another episode of Yes with Yesse. And we'll definitely be here with you guys before that on Monday for another episode of Latin Monday. And if you haven't yet heard, I will be with you guys beginning in March. The first Friday in March, I'll be here with you guys for Latin Gospel Jam. Latin Gospel Jam, 7 p.m. starting March 4th. Don't want to miss that. We're going to have so much fun. So until then, guys, have a great evening. Have a great day tomorrow. See you guys tomorrow morning again on the Pastor Steve Show. And have a great weekend after that. Until next time.
So let's just pray.